Millennials are struggling to buy homes, and then when they actually can afford one, it looks like they have a little bit of buyer's remorse. CNBC recently released an article titled 63% of millennials who bought homes have regrets, usually because they missed this one crucial step. Well, basically the article's touching on how they interviewed a lot of millennials who are new home buyers, and they're trying to figure out why do they have buyer's remorse. And it's looking like a certain percent of them have some regrets because they underestimated the expenses that go into purchasing a home. When owning a home, most of the maintenance will take place inside. You're gonna have little things go wrong. The plumbing may get clogged up and it no longer drains. What happens when the electrical outlets stop turning off lights? Time to call the electrician. Little things break, little small issues, but they add up, multiple $100s here and there. Now the purpose of this is I'm going to show you some exterior issues that you need to consider, because you go months or maybe even years without any major expenses. I'm talking anything from $2,000 to $10,000. But over time, the house depreciates, especially the exterior, and these issues are $0 for months or years, but then when you have an issue, it could be multiple thousands of dollars. Because of the heat, Vegas has some pretty ugly ass yards, but this is consistent throughout America, and that is yard work. It's gonna require money to maintain it, or it ends up looking like this. Now I'm sure you're probably watching this and saying, oh my God, Spencer, there's no way I'd buy a house with a yard like that. Well, understand that this is a neighborhood full of houses that could probably be first-time purchases for these families. And when you don't have a big budget and you aren't able to buy in the A+ neighborhoods, you might have to resort to owning a home that is within your budget, that might be a little low priced and in a neighborhood that has yards like the ones I'm showing you. Now, I don't want that to be a deterrent. Just understand that when you do own a home, you're gonna have to make decisions on how much money you put into maintaining it, maintaining the exterior, how much money you want to put into making the yard look really appealing, even if your neighbors don't have A+ houses. Now, just a couple houses down, we have this house, which looks way better, and you can tell they put a lot of money into it, but this costs monthly payments to someone to do it. Either you're paying yourself with your time, or you're paying someone to help maintain your yard. I think the real problem that's happening is that new home buyers are overextending their budget and buying way too much house. I'm seeing this so frequently on social media that I had to make a video about it, because I see so many first-time home buyers buying 3 or 4 bedroom houses in really nice neighborhoods, which is great. That's very awesome that you're able to accomplish that. However, when it's a starter home and you're 26 years old and you're recently married and you're buying a 3 or 4 bed house where you only occupy 1 room, it's completely inefficient, and it's leaving you open to having buyer's remorse when big expenses come up. So I think what we're seeing is a lot of new home buyers are, rattled with student debt. They have a lot of consumer debt, and they also are buying way too much house. And what happens when you put a small down payment down, which is typical of first-time home buyers, when you see the FHA 3.5% down or a conventional 5 or 10% down, when you're leveraging a lot of the house, it's going to come with extra costs. And I don't think that many people are really knowledgeable of those costs going into owning the home, and the article touches on it. And that is, when you go to buy a house, you're going to have closing costs, points, fees. You're going to have to pay for an inspection and an appraisal. And typically when you're putting down, or when you put down less than 20%, so for most home buyers that are putting down 3.5%, they're going to have what's called PMI. And these are all extra costs that go into purchasing a home. So when you're actually in the closing process of buying your first house, you might see, hey, it's a $100,000 house. We can put down 3.5%. So we only need $3,500, but that's actually incorrect. What you're going to need is much more. You're going to need at least 1 to 3% in points and fees. You're going to have to pay for appraisal and inspection out of pocket. And then monthly, depending on the cost of the house, you can pay multiple hundreds of dollars in PMI. And that's basically insurance for the lender to make sure that you make payments and they recoup their money in the event that you default on the mortgage. I'm going to provide 3 different options that first-time homebuyers usually go after, and I'm going to let you decide which is best. So the first house, we're out here in Summerlin, Las Vegas, Nevada, in a beautiful neighborhood. This is a really nice area, really nice zip code with good school districts and a lot of parks around here. A lot of good families live in this neighborhood. This is what a typical first-time homebuyer goes after. Super nice neighborhood, a little bit out of their budget. The houses in this zip code are, I wouldn't say overpriced right now, but they're certainly low inventory, so a lot of people are wanting to move here and it's driving the prices up. We're going to assume our first-time homebuyers have $20,000 to purchase their first home. So this lovely home in one of the best zip codes in Las Vegas comes with a purchase price of $315,000. I'm going to assume a 4.5% interest rate, and I'm also going to assume a 5% down payment because they are first-time home buyers and looking to buy as much house as they can with as little down payment as possible. So the down payment is $15,750, which leaves a loan amount of $299,250. Now, I'm going to assume 1% closing costs of the loan amount, so I estimated at $3,000. I think that's a pretty fair estimate. The mortgage monthly will be $1,516. The property taxes, $148. The insurance, $71. And that lovely PMI of $190 every single month. So the total monthly payment comes out to $1,925. In order to close on this deal, they'll need $18,750, which is almost all of their cash, leaving only $1,250 in reserves. House number 2. This is only about 4.5 miles away from house number 1, so you're still in a nice zip code. Looks like a nice residential area, but the house prices are much lower. So if you're a first-time home buyer, you can get into a nice size house in a nice quiet neighborhood for a much lower price, and more importantly, much lower monthly payment that leaves you with a lot more reserves for any unexpected maintenance. Let's apply that same $20,000 to our second property, which is in a nice area that is close by but not in the same zip code. So we can actually get a purchase price of $235,000. We'll assume the same 4.5% interest rate, 5% down payment, which would leave us with a down payment of $11,750. The loan amount would be $223,250, and using 1% closing costs, we'll estimate $2,300 there. The monthly mortgage amount would be $1,131, the property taxes $81, the insurance $46, PMI $141, which would leave us with a total monthly payment of $1,400 exactly. The total cash needed to buy this house would be only $14,050, which would leave a nice size of cash reserves of $5,950, much more than the first property. House number 3 is a townhome with 3 beds, 3 bath, 1,300 square feet. I actually really like townhomes or condos as a first purchase. The HOA covers most external expenses, which makes it easier on the owner, and it looks move-in friendly as all of the pictures make the place look brand new. And because it's a townhome, we can actually get the purchase price at $240,000 with a 4.5% interest rate, 5% down payment. We're looking at a down payment of only $12,000, which would leave the loan amount to be $228,000. With 1% in closing costs, we'll be right at $2,300. Our monthly mortgage will be $1,155, property taxes $89, insurance $46. HOA for this townhome community is $50, which would leave us with a PMI of 144. The total monthly will be $1,485. The total cash needed, $15,300, leaving us with a cash reserves of $4,700. That first house purchase is a really important one. As you can see, the first house provides a great zip code and everything, but it provides a lot of house. And at that price point, you're leaving yourself with very little cash reserves. If you go with the second house, you can get in a very similar zip code with a very nice option for you as a first-time home buyer, and you get with a pretty nice discount. You leave a lot of money in cash reserves. Then the third option, if you wanted to go a townhome, which is not quite a house, but it leaves you arguably with the best situation. It leaves you with an amazing zip code, 3 bed, 3 bath, and you get a lot in cash reserves.
Which one would you choose?
There's a section in this article that has a quote from Lawrence Yun, a chief economist of the National Association of Realtors. He tells CNBC, start with a starter home and later trade up rather than going for a dream home on the first try. This is what I talk about all the time. I think a lot of first-time home buyers are trying to buy that dream home. They're trying to buy too much house and they're thinking ahead way too much. They're seeing, oh my gosh, my parents or my friends come, once a year and we need to make sure we have a room for them, or we might be having kids in the next 5 years. And they're trying to buy way too much house for their starter home. I always preach that the first house you should buy is way within your budget. What I mean by that is you're putting down 20%, and if you can't do that, maybe 10%, but the house purchase price is something you easily qualify for. There's a shortage of starter homes is the title of the section, and it's basically talking about how millennial home buyers end up paying more than they wanted for a house that they want because there aren't many homes available at the prices young people can comfortably pay. I completely disagree with that. I think if you have really strong personal finance, you hold off on a lot of dumb purchases. These are like cars, extending your budget for a few years. If you can just hold back and be frugal, and this is what I'll always preach, be frugal for 4 or 5 years, even on lower incomes, you can absolutely afford a house. When a husband and wife are married at mid to late 20s, that's 2 incomes and no kids, you absolutely can afford a house. There are affordable homes everywhere. I will argue that. And outside of the coast, of course. Yoon goes on to say in this article, we need more affordable priced homes, and the shortage of these properties are forcing people to possibly overstretch their budget. And if you are someone that feels like you have to overstretch your budget, hold off on purchasing a home. We've seen a huge run in the 10 years since 2009, 2010, where home prices have gone through the roof in many markets, here in Las Vegas specifically. And if you feel like there's just a house you have to have and you're trying to overstretch your budget, that is a recipe for disaster. There's nothing wrong with waiting a couple years, especially because this article is aimed at millennials. If you're a millennial, you're in your 20s or early 30s, you absolutely can hold off for 3 years. I mean, if you think about the long haul of life, like just putting off something for 3 years to allow yourself to have a much better financial situation when you do buy the house is a way better decision than trying to overstretch your budget. I'm so against that mindset of overstretching your budget for your first house that whenever I see something like that, it really upsets me, because I think if you're someone out there, if you watch this channel, if you want to be frugal, if you want to be financially smart, then do not overstretch your budget and try to get into too much house too soon.